Il passe à super, l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Picture the scene. It's summer 2022. Nadim Remili has just arrived at his new club. Probably after his first training session, he looked around the Holia Leginov Kielce and thought to himself, yeah, I can imagine a second leg of the quarterfinal of the Champions League, scoring 7 goals, leading my team, and Kielce will qualify for the Final Four. Well, that's exactly what happened, but there's just one problem. Nadim Remili was on the wrong team. Hello, and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour and our little post-quarterfinal roundup, as well as bringing you the final part of the live show we did last week celebrating 200 episodes of the podcast. It's Chris here, joined by Brian Campion.
Hello, Chris.
And Alex Kulish.
I'm moved to tears with that opening dialogue, Chris. It's beautiful.
Good one, huh?
The other side of it is Petr Nenadic is going to be watching that game from a nice hotel room or a nice apartment in Paris, sipping away at his espresso, looking at his former teammates all rumble in Poland.
Yeah. Wow. So it's Barcelona, Kielce, Magdeburg and PSG off to Cologne for the, what was it, 17th and 18th of June? Yeah. The HF Final Four. The old Truck Scout 24 itself. And where do we want to start in this little wrap up? I think there's 2 games to choose from, really.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of things that have impressed me, and I have a lot of things that have disappointed me. But I think it's, before we get into that, I think it's probably worth starting in Magdeburg, where Chris, you had your wet dream finally come true.
of work with me on site, I know, yeah. He said it to me after the game.
Of traveling for 10 hours straight before working, yeah. Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Now, for those of you who don't know Chris O'Reilly loves an old Dutchman. And there's been one Dutchman who, since we spoke to him first back at the Euro 2020, was that right?
That's right.
He was him and a young man called Luke Stein sat down with him. We're talking about Kai Smits here. Kai Smits and Luke Stein sat down with us at a Euro in 2020, and they were coming to that Euro being kind of like, I suppose, no names really compared to what they are now in the world of handball. Fast forward to right now, and it looks like Kai Smits and Luke Steins are in the top 10 players in the world. I don't know, maybe even top 5.
Lighting up the Final Four.
We're going to see they're going to be absolutely lighting up the Final Four. And I mean, that's a performance by Kai Smits yesterday was probably the best we've ever seen from him. 14 goals, 2 assists, and it just looked like every ball he touched, it was just turning to fire. I don't know, did you play NBA Jam back in the day on the Nintendo?
Yeah.
When you used to go on fire? He's on fire! And that was very much like what I felt like watching him out there. I mean, just so dynamic, just so explosive. And the man can jump as well. And yeah, I mean, just the perfect performance. And I was backstage when Bennett Wiegert was hugging all the players. And Kai Smits walked in carrying the balls and a few sweaty jerseys with him as well as the Player of the Match award, and gave him a very extra long hug and big massive wet kiss right in his forehead. So it was a bit of a special attention there from the main man, Bennett Wiegert. But Chris, you must be very happy now that Magdeburg are in the Final Four. For years, you've been blowing their trumpet.
Well, you know, it's almost a bit too easy for them, isn't it? They come in the first season and stumble their way in. And the funny thing is, they had the easiest of paths, you would say, on paper, getting to the Final Four. But it actually, of the four teams that qualified, they had the toughest challenge in the quarterfinal in the end, due to the injury problems they've had. And little did we know at the beginning of the season, when you had Omar Ingi Magnusson at right back, you had Gisli Christiansen at centre back, and Philip Weber at left back, playing 90% of the games, and Magnus Augstrup on the line, that you would, at the end of the season, it would be Kai Smits, Mikkel Damgaard, Christian O'Sullivan, and Lucas Meister leading the team. And that's what I'm hyper impressed with about it, that those four guys in the diamond of the attack in the centre were the ones that led them in there. And Kai Smits had this kind of once in a lifetime performance, that to go 7 from 8 in both halves, like 2 individual man of the match performances in one game. And I said it on the commentary, I was like, surely he can't keep this going at half time. And he not only did he do that, but he did the exact same thing again and scored some ridiculous goals, which, that one towards the end of the first half was one of the most insane things I've ever seen. I have to watch that in 5 times slow-mo. I still don't understand what he did. And he didn't understand what he did as well. He said after the game, he was like, I was just trying to not hurt myself. As he spun through the air, catching his own rebound. And, that was the only miss he had in the first half, and he caught the rebound from it and scored. So there you go. What a performance from the guy. And Płock made it so difficult for him in the second half as well. But he deserves a shed load of credit, as does Mikkel Damgaard as well, who set the tone right from the beginning. 8 goals. Lucas Meister with 4. And then after that, it was a bunch of players who scored 1 goal. So there wasn't much coming in the attack from the rest of them. Just a great game. Like, there's so many things to pick from it. Płock did everything they could. Huge credit to them as well. Made a few too many turnovers in the first half. A few bad decisions, shooting-wise and passing-wise, towards the end, which I think cost them. But I think they can be very proud of themselves. And the 600 Płock fans that travelled all the way over and were looming right above my head for the entire game, who showered me in blue and white balloons at throw-off, which is like my whole area, just balloons falling on top of my head for the first minute of the game. Thankfully, that was the only thing they threw. I was slightly worried they might get angry, but I think, they kind of accepted the game for what it was in the end. Just an amazing atmosphere, an amazing occasion, and I think at a game like that, for also the crowd in Magdeburg, that will make all those fans and the players fall in love with the competition. Like, it's moments like that and experiences like that, they're like, wow, when Kiel come or Berlin come or Leipzig come, the fans don't do that to us. Like, that was a whole new experience for the fans as well, that they probably hadn't experienced properly since 2002 in Veszprem. So yeah, great evening all around.
Yeah, it didn't feel like the Płockans were... they were obviously disappointed at the end of it, but the vibe you were getting after the game was kind of like, this has been an incredible season for us.
Yeah.
Getting this far, pushing Magdeburg all the way. They really did push them the whole game as well. Maybe in different circumstances, maybe you could imagine that if Kai Smits had only 80% of that performance, that it might have been a draw at the end of it and have gone to penalties or whatever. But they obviously have a cup final to look forward to as well. So it's been a really, really good season for them, and I think they've really showed that they belong in the Champions League. So great club, great supporters, and it was a brilliant quarter final.
Yeah, definitely. I have to give it up to Kosaratov as well, who was unbelievable. He might be the best backcourt shooter in the world, right? A traditional backcourt shooter.
Yeah.
Whereas like that big guy who just you give the ball to and he'll just jump over everyone and lump it into the top corner. He did that a couple of times, and he had a really good game. He had 8 goals, but I think for basically the first 50 minutes, he was on 100% shooting rate. And then as plots got a little bit more desperate and Magdeburg's defense got more aggressive, and I have to really shout out Christian O'Sullivan. You know, we love Christian O'Sullivan on this podcast, but I think him defensively, he was just the boss. It's interesting to have a slightly smaller playmaker be actually the boss of defense, both vocally, both in his actions, and in the way that the defense kind of became more aggressive to shut down those long shots from the likes of Kosaratov and Tin Lucene. Was really impressive, led by Christian O'Sullivan. Even though he didn't have the greatest game in attack, he did so much more in the classic Swiss Army knife way that he does it.
Even a couple of steals as well. Another shout out for Płock, maybe a player that it would have been nicer to see him earlier in the game, Dmitry Zhitnikov, who provided the best assist I've ever seen, full stop. Did you guys see that?
I've not seen that.
Walk us through it again.
Lads, you have to... Oh my goodness. Right, I'm going to find the exact time on the game, because it's on the highlights as well, where it's actually disgustingly good. So he spins the defender, looks like he's going to take the shot, and then like the keeper starts moving, follows the arm like he's going to take the shot, and then he just like dumps it sideways across to the line. Sergio, who scores the goal, just an absolute thing of beauty. If you go to the highlights on the Home of Handball YouTube channel, and you skip for, it's only 3 minutes long in total anyway, so it's
are we doing this live on the podcast? Are we doing
we're doing live on the podcast?
reaction?
Just so you find the time stamp. Do you want to see it? Maybe it's not the best one ever.
No.
He's backtracking now.
No. I'm
going to clip this up and put it on social media and say this is the best assist ever.
So yeah, you go into the Home of Handball channel and look for that highlight video. I've put it in the WhatsApp group there. 1 minute 34 in the video and 5 minutes and 4 seconds in the actual second half.
That is pretty nice. It's a spin. I think you understated the fact that
it's a spin and the dump pass. I think it's everything.
And steps. That's incredible, huh? I think it is steps. I think it's 4, but anyway. Sure, who cares anymore? No one cares about 4 steps anymore.
Zhitnikov's going to sign for Gay.
Everyone is taking 5 steps these days.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful,
amazing.
Though. It is. A bit of ballerina style.
Anything else on Płock and Magdeburg before we go? Oh, well, one thing for me, Magnus Saugstrup back in the squad. Philip Weber was in the squad. Oscar Bergendahl was in the squad. We wondered whether there was some kind of weird tactical or mind games approach from Bennett Viger. It turned out to be maybe a little bit of both. And now I fully believe that Gisli Christiansen will be back for the Final Four, because watching him in the arena yesterday, he's going to do everything in his power to be available.
It's true.
Needs to be done. It's you ligament in his ankle or something? Broken ankle? What's the problem?
I didn't actually...
Undisclosed?
Perfect. Yeah, but he's wearing one of those boots.
He's wearing a boot.
But I mean, sure, that can mean anything.
That means his feet are colder.
But it is that's a really good point, because Magdeburg had their insane injury, bad luck. They had to get through this game, but they have a month to get those players back. Like, a month is a decent amount of time. Weber actually played in that game. He had a shot.
Yeah.
Oscar Bergendahl, I think, was a more short-term injury. Saugstrup seems to be kind of back on the mend enough to do a warm-up. So a month is good enough. He
played in attack a few times, and he played in defense as well for a couple of minutes. So hey, that's plenty. It was enough to suggest that he's definitely close to being fully fit.
Exactly. So all those players are back. Are probably going to be back. Christiansen, let's see. That's going to be a tougher one. It looked like a pretty bad injury when it happened. And Magnussen, he'll still be out, but who needs him?
You probably don't want him at this point. Yeah, you don't want to do anything to unsettle Guy Smits. Just let him be.
Because I was it's a good point, because I was kind of thinking, well done Magdeburg, but yeah, you'll reach your Final Four and be happy about it. But a month is a lot of time to get their players back and actually be a real challenge in that Final Four. But ultimately, the other three teams that advanced were just out of this world. They were like levels ahead of, and maybe obvious to say this, but they were levels ahead of every other team in this round. And like two ties that we thought were going to be close were Kielce Veszprem and Kiel versus PSG, but Kielce and PSG were just, again, like miles ahead. Really tactically, physically, dynamically, just miles ahead. It wasn't even close. And I want to start with saying how impressed I was with those two teams before I dive in and say how disappointed I was with the teams that didn't progress. Because I want to highlight them. And I have to say, PSG just were unbelievable. Like, they really were. They impressed me the most out of every team in this quarterfinal. They impressed me the most. They dispatched Kiel with absolute ease, winning both legs. And so the difference between the teams, like those three teams that I'm talking about, and every other team is that every single move they have in attack has so much purpose and has so much optionality. Like, that was really obvious in Veszprem versus Kielce, because Veszprem they were horrific in attack. They were horrific tactically. They were fully reliant on individual play from the backcourt. And, they got some good individual play from the backcourt in both legs. It was Eldorad in the first leg. It was Remili in the second leg. Maia actually had a great game. But their moves in attack were so simple. They just kept doing these switches over the center, over and over again. It would just be the three backcourt players passing the ball to each other, and eventually one of them decides that this is just about good enough for me to get a shot away. And a lot of those shots went in, and they kind of stayed in there. But when you look at Kielce doing the same type of movements, this applies to PSG and Barcelona as well. There's three players moving in different directions simultaneously in a combined way, where a player receives a speed and he just has four options, whether it's pass it to the line, pass it to a curling player on the other side, or someone else is going to come into the middle. And the ball is played at speed, and the attacking player gets it at speed, and no one has a chance.
The way you describe it is kind of like a quarterback and his options at the beginning of a play in American football, except it's happening all the time, right?
Exactly.
So it's all these players running kind of mini routes as they're supposed to in the action, or maybe sometimes just completely random, but always moving, always looking for the ball, always trying to create either options for themselves or for a teammate.
Exactly. It was like beautiful to watch. And yeah, and these teams have the best of both worlds. The fast, dynamic handball, the fast-paced counterattack that we have talked about, and players like Steins are able to push the play. Alex Dushabayev, every single Barcelona player. But when they do settle down, they all know what's going on. They've been coached in the right way, where they know exactly the game plan and what every single move they're going to make is going to do, and the options they have around them. So they don't become repetitive either. They play a move, but it can be different every single time. And it was just evident in those teams, and on the flip side, it was evident how much that was lacking for Veszprem and Kiel. And it just made a huge difference.
Yeah, I think for Veszprem especially, it's one thing I noticed as well. It kind of felt like they just weren't playing with any width or the wings at all, and it just felt like they were just making these switches at the backcourt. And then when there was a timeout called, and I was just thinking, yeah, it was very obvious when Momir Ilic took the timeouts. He was just like, all right, let's switch back to 6-0 now. It's not working. And then, come on, guys, just we have to really try and improve or try and stop them at every attack by attack. All right, let's go. And I was like, that's what you're saying when you're on the verge of making it to the Final Four, and that's your tactical input. I just thought it was a bit light and I never really talked about the attack. So clear, so defense focused, and then when it came to the attack, it was just like, right, lads, go do your thing. Or Nedim, just launch a few shots there, or Kenton, you do something magical, and the lads in the wings just doing not being brought into play at all, like, you know.
And it's exactly that with the backcourt players, because many times they would just kind of come into attack, and Kent Amaya would get the ball and he'd look at Lauga and be like, right, what are we doing now? Yeah, let's do this. And this all happens kind of in head nods or hand signals or maybe one or two words, but it's not that they're moving up in exact direction. It's like, right, we've done this a lot of times. You know, what do you think is the best thing to do, Mr. Lauga-Schmidt? Okay, let's try that. It's not a attacking game plan forged by the coach.
But it's close enough to working enough times, and I think that's why it's not like this is a new thing necessarily, but it's, you know, it almost worked last week when they raced ahead for a point in the second half. The problem at the beginning of this game in the second leg was they played so within themselves, like you could see it, like the energy wasn't there in the backcourt at the beginning, and you went into good detail on that already, Alex. But despite all of that, you know, they're 18-12 down at half-time, and they could easily have gone back to 18-16 after just 4 minutes of that second half. Like, they got 2 goals in a row. They had 2 glorious opportunities to cut it back to 2. And then all of this, like, individuals creating magic, a little bit of chaos, you know, putting the opposition under pressure could have worked out. But thankfully for Kielce's sake, they didn't have to worry about that situation because Veszprém didn't take their chances, and it was just such a messy second half. Then, like after they missed those opportunities to cut the deficit, it slowly but surely got a little bit more desperate in and around the midway point of that second half, and it just made life really easy for Kielce, who were the complete opposite of them. Like I think they had 4 or 5 different players who had scored 3 goals already towards the end of the first half. Just such a good variety as well in the attack.
I don't think Veszprém weren't helped really either by, I think, Rodrigo Corrales. I think he didn't really help. They needed someone maybe in certain points of the game, or keeper, to step up to get some saves, maybe to ease the pressure on them a little bit. But he had a bit of a howler, I think. And I think Chupara came on for a little bit, but he only faced 4 shots, and there's no one really there to come in. And I mean, I think the Kielce keepers weren't exactly lighting it up either, but they didn't need to.
No, they did enough to win that battle.
But Kielce won it in the first 10 minutes. They raced ahead and just really coasted for the rest of the game. Yeah, there was some small moments where Veszprém seemed to gain momentum, but they were able to be closed down very quickly, or shut down very quickly. And that is down to Talent Shubayev, because he knew that Veszprém, basically the Veszprém backcourt players were going to be quite individual. They were not going to have the most advanced moves. They're all good shooters. Also on the line, Andy Nielsen was playing, and he's not a good mover. So he's a fantastic line player. He kind of takes his position and fights over a defender, but he doesn't kind of take advantage of space. So Kielce started with this really aggressive defense. They basically stepped out until 9 meters with both number 2 defenders and really pressured Veszprém straight away. And Veszprém were trying to fight one-on-one because, again, they're more individual. So they're just trying to fight one-on-one with these number 2 defenders, whether it was Lauga or Remy Lee. And Nielsen wasn't moving, or wasn't allowed to move, to take advantage of the space that was created there. And then they just pushed their wingers in because, again, they know that Veszprém aren't going to pass to the wings. So they had like this huge center block that was hitting the Veszprém backcourt players really early and just not giving them any space. And that's difficult to maintain for a whole game. So after 10, 15 minutes, they like put in this huge effort and then just retreated back, but the game was won.
You went into what you were impressed by, Alex. You went into what disappointed you about Vesprem. Can you really be disappointed by Kiel?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course you can be disappointed by Kiel. It's Kiel. This is the best handball club in the world.
Kiel didn't seem to be too disappointed in Kiel.
That's just bullshit. I'm calling bullshit here. Because like there's this whole like, oh, we don't really care, we want the Bundesliga. They have the Bundesliga 1 right now. Like they're playing 4 more games against weak opposition, relatively weak opposition. And you know, it's Bundesliga, anything can happen, whatever. But they pretty much have the Bundesliga 1. And they're playing against PSG, who are in an insane title race at the moment. They've been playing like the French Cup. They've been playing really high level competition in France. And PSG didn't focus on the league, even though they're in this insane title race. So all of those excuses are just
excuses.
It's useless, and they should be the best team in the world, and they're not. And I can't just say attitude is the only. They don't care. They do care. They definitely.
Of course they care. Of course they do. This is what's funny about the whole thing. It's just like Brian was showing me their Instagram account yesterday, and he's like, "Look at all the comments here." Just like one guy was angry, the rest were like, you know, don't worry about it, guys. You know, we're still Kiel.
Head high, you know.
We go again. It's like, no, you don't. You're gone.
Yeah.
You're finished.
Yeah, I just show a bit of. I mean, you don't want to go Vesprem on them, but like, you know, show a bit of passion and a bit of anger. It's like Kiel lose in the Champions League. It's like, that's because we're playing in the best league in the world. And then if they went through, it's like, of course we're playing the best league in the world. Like, we're way better than these teams. It's like it's a double-sided excuse no matter what happens.
So excluding the 2020 the Final Four that they won, which was a unique thing in itself, they haven't won a Champions League since 2012. They've spent a couple of seasons outside the Champions League. They've failed to reach the Final Four multiple times. They're just not at the highest level. And I think, Brian, you put up a poll, right, about like, are the top German teams really that good? Like they're good in their league because the average level is really high, but are they, you know, actually at the highest level? Maybe that was a little bit harsh. It was kind of a 50-50 split in replies to that. But there's some truth to it.
Yeah, there was you were just poking the bear there, weren't you, Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted, because I just saw in the comments, I saw a few Kiel fans saying, we only had one training to prepare for this. They had a whole week. And I was thinking, do you really think with a week's preparation it would have been any closer? I don't think necessarily it would have been. Again, like
we had Yahya Omar telling us that it's better to be playing, you know, on a regular basis twice a week, and a lot of players say that. You can find excuses all the time, and I think the biggest excuse, the biggest problem for them was Eric Johansson wasn't there. He was there, their fountain of youth and easy goals. That was the biggest problem for them. He wasn't there, but that happens.
And I think it exposes. So Nicolas Andine just didn't have the greatest tie. So he played well in the first leg. He definitely played well. He didn't have second leg. He had a bad game, and that just exposed Kiel, because every big victory in the Bundesliga they've had this year has been pretty much down to an insane Nicolas Andine performance. So they're going to lose him next season. And I fear that they'll be completely exposed as a kind of not that good of a team.
And then what will the question be?
You tell me,
do we
Chris.
Need to?
something, Yicha.
People are going to think we have a real agenda against Kiel as well. We're hammering Momir Ilic before this, saying he's tactical acumen, and now it's Kiel. all the old Kiel legends.
The kind of going back to the kind of tactics talk for Kiel, and we've kind of said it a lot. They're just a bit too robotic. They don't have, while they have a lot of movement and they have a lot of options in like the different types of attacking play calls that they go to. So they have a book of like 100. Like they're different in ways, but they don't have the optionality that the other teams I talked about have, where within one move there is 5 variations. They just don't seem to play in that sort of way. It's kind of, let's go through a motion to get the ball and the defense positioned in the right spot for someone to shoot. And it works all the time, but at the highest level, it's just like a step down from the masterclasses that we saw. And when Peter Overboo is your top scorer in the second leg of a quarterfinal, then something has to be wrong.
Hey, it's not Peter Overby's fault. He did his job. Hey, let's give him some credit here. At least he got the goals.
We were talking in the train yesterday, Chris, as well. Like, when's the next time we're going to see Sander Sagerson in a Champions League quarterfinal?
Next season with Kolstad.
Yeah, I mean, but we were looking at the squad for Kolstad. I mean, they are at best a quarterfinal team. At very best, a quarterfinal team. Yeah, I mean, they might be in the quarterfinal again. They won't be in the final 4. Not for a while.
But with invigorated Sander Sagerson, arrested Sander Sagerson.
Yeah, I'd be more worried about his teammates. It's interesting. Well, we'll go to that. We'll go to that at another time down the line. At the moment, they're still battling to try and win the Norwegian League. I think we can wrap this part up shortly. I was half expecting one of you to go, "This is shite. Like, what a terrible set of quarterfinals. Same old teams. And then I was going to hit you back with like, we can't be angry at teams that have just been exceptional in the cases of Kielce and PSG. And I think they've been the anomalies in all of this that have really have made a little bit one-sided. We got one really good quarterfinal, and the Barca Georgie one was as expected in the end. I mean, there could have been some miracle in the first leg. It didn't happen, so be it. In the wider picture, interestingly enough, for the Final 4 now, for the 3rd year in a row, we have not just a different lineup, but half of the teams from the year before making it. So only 2 teams from last year are back this time, and only 2 teams from the year before are back this time. So it's showing a bit of variety, which I think is pretty good and pretty interesting. And overall, it feels like the right 4 teams. Like, this is based on what we've seen in the quarterfinals. It's easy to say that now. You know, I think a few of us expected more from Kiel and Westbrem, but having seen what we've seen, it feels like a good lineup.
It's going to be unbelievable. I think so. And especially, again, going back to that 1 month of rest, because I was kind of, with Magdeburg, I was kind of like, well done on getting through, but at least one semi-final is going to be a dud. But, you know, players
they're going to win it now.
They're just going to win it. They're going to win it. I'm saying it. That's what I was thinking. But
we said that back in, what was it, February? Right?
Yeah,
or even
true.
before that. Yeah.
They had the run, and they're just warriors, which is nice to get. There's a nice mix of teams as well, in terms of, you know, their playing styles or the fans or the type of players we'll see. So I'm really excited for the Final 4.
The draw is on the 23rd.
Tuesday.
So, yeah. Who do you want to see for the semi-finals being paired up? Who do you not want to see? I mean, would you be annoyed if it was... I'm not really sure. Do you really want another Barca-Kielce final? I'm not sure I do.
No, I want to have Kielce and Barca in one semi-final. I want to have PSG and Magdeburg in the other. I think that'll be the perfect lineup for me.
I would like to see PSG versus Barca, because I think that's the best opportunity for Barca to lose a semi-final game against PSG. Because again, I'm just so impressed by this PSG team. I know, they blew me away. And I think they can, with Raul Gonzalez, they can set up really well tactically, and we'll have this kind of, tactical exchange of brilliance between the two coaches, the two Spanish coaches. And we all want to see Steins versus Kai Smits in the final, right?
If you went back to the beginning of the season and would say that PSG and Magdeburg would be in the final, nobody would believe you. But there you go. It's great. Great sign of the... Because I think you kind of alluded to it. PSG at the beginning of this season, I don't think we were giving much of a chance to. We thought they had really dropped the level, but it seems the more superstars they lose, the better team they become. Plus, now they have Petr Nenadic to just add a little je ne sais quoi to the whole thing. Yeah. How about you, Brian? Do you have a semi-final pairings you'd like to see?
I just feel like I don't want to stomach another Barca Kielce final and then Barca winning it again. I just think that would be too much for me. Like, I really don't want that. As much I don't really mind Barca winning it, but a carbon copy of last season, after filming all those Kielce tears, and I just can't handle that again.
Can't handle any more Polish tears.
I can't handle those tears again, because that will happen. I feel like if it is a Barca Kielce final once more, I feel it could be very similar. So I think you just want to see Kielce Barca in the semi-final, get that out of the way, and then maybe a PSG Barca final. That'd be quite tasty. Not giving Magdeburg any chance here, but who knows?
I think it's a Final Four. No matter what happens,
yeah,
it can be really, really good. And a month away, pretty much exactly. We're recording this on Thursday night, right after the games. The final will be in exactly a month's time. All right. I think we can wrap it up for the quarterfinal chat. Any parting words? No? Yes? Maybe?
I've one hot take, and that is Simon Sichko the best left back in the world right now?
Oh, wow. No.
I think he's the people's champion, no?
What? I just said Simon Pitlick. Simon Pitlick? What happened to him?
I know, but
he's out of the Champions League. You've forgotten about him?
But Simon Pitlick is like... He has way more potential for sure, and he's going to be better than him. But at this exact moment, Pitlick also has some flaws at the biggest stage.
Yeah, but right now, if we're saying that Simon Pitlick was the best player at the World Championship, we're saying Simon Pitlick was the best player for the majority of the Champions League so far this season, and then after one game,
but
takes his place.
No, I'm just like we've seen. Pitlick,
I don't know, Alex. I don't think so.
No, but we've seen Pitlick hit a bit of a wall this season. The same in the Danish Championship. Like George and Simon Pitlick haven't been as good. So like, I'm not saying that if I was going to start a team today, I would
this season. Alex, you barely knew him 4 months ago. I call bullshit on this conversation.
No, the start of it, you're like, you're like, is he the best in the world? And then you're saying right now, then it's like, I wouldn't put him starting in my team though.
I'm like Simon Sichko.
I don't know. Oh God. All right. Well, we'll see. He's great. Yes.
He's Steady Eddie, isn't he? Steady Eddie.
He's Steady Eddie.
He's gone beyond that. He's gone beyond Steady Eddie.
If he wins the Final Four for them, then
Gorgeous George.
We'll see.
That's it.
All right. Well, that was a real hot take. Yeah, I'll give you that one. On that note, on to the final part of the live show we had with our wonderful guests on the celebration of 200 episodes, Courtney Gain, Rasmus Boyson, and Yaya Omar. And as I mentioned in the previous intro, congratulations again to Eduarda Amorim, who was on her way to the hospital having her baby when she was supposed to join us on the live show. And because we had such an international lineup, we wanted to take a little bit of a detour in the conversation towards the end and talk about handball as a world sport and what we can do, what is being done, what people would like to see in the sport to make it less Eurocentric and help develop areas that are already quite exciting and areas such as Asia and the USA that we'd like to see more from the sport. We did have two. We're only halfway through the show, but we'll be going to 2 hours. So I don't think we will force you to be here for much longer. I just want to ask, because I think we have an interesting collection of people here about, the handball as a global sport, and just to get your perspectives on what you feel is needed. It can be a small thing, it can be a big thing, it can be a dream or something that you think could really be achieved in the next few years to help this sport become ever more global and not so much focused on Europe as it is at the moment. And it would have been really nice to have Duda here as well, as one of just 2 teams who have ever won a world championship that from a non-European team. But Yaya, as an Egyptian who's now been in Europe the last couple of years and someone who knows a lot about the state of the sport, also in the past, how do you feel about this? What would you like to see done?
I think there's a lot that can be done, but I'd like to give an example what I saw now, because now in Egypt there has been a couple of years they're making something called the BAL. It's from the NBA, and they organize the whole African championships for clubs. And they do it every year in one country. Past 2 years has been here. And they sponsor everything. They do the designs. They come they send some players, like old players, like Dwayne Wade was here. And it's actually amazing for basketball, because, basketball in Egypt is not like so big, but in Africa it's really big. And for Africa to have like a base that the NBA comes, sponsors the whole tournament, and they bring some famous players who were in the past, who were there, and help the continent just grow, and maybe scout some players that can come back play in some better leagues. I think the Champions League can actually do the same. They can start to help and offer a little bit, and with other continents or countries, just out of media and awareness that they can see some other players. Or it's really easy to do like this collaboration where some athletes can come, and I'm sure it would be supported also by our countries, not only by European countries, but by Africans or South Americans. Or it would be amazing to have like one big event where a lot of ex-handball players can come, and how fans here are really crazy about it. And it would be amazing to have some big event every 1 year, couple of years that brings handball more here. And handball has been growing here so much, especially in Egypt in the past couple of years. And I see that a lot of work can be done not only by players. Players and coaches and this are doing the maximum they can, but other people can make a lot of better jobs doing this stuff to make handball, use this love that people have now for handball and for the players that are playing, and use it to do some things to raise awareness around the game and around the sport in general.
Yeah, I mean, what Yaya talked about, totally those kinds of projects. I've seen like Major League Baseball have also done similar things where they're trying to grow their sport. The difference with like the NBA and an MLB versus Champions League is that it's happening in one country, and Champions League is obviously like, so it's just, I'm not saying that we shouldn't hope for that. That's a great, those kinds of initiatives can be really important. I see the biggest thing is like awareness. I think, for handball to be more global, we need the non-European teams to be more competitive. That means we need their continental championships to also be more competitive. And for me, that comes down to mainly increasing participation, so that our national teams, like in Australia, there's not a lot of competition to be in the national team. The more players you have, the better your national teams can be. And for me, it does actually come back to the Champions League being like a really important thing right now. because people in Australia, for example, they have vaguely heard of handball. But if you're a little kid in Australia, you don't know that you can be a handball star and play on a court in front of fans and things like that. Any Australian kid, you tell them to play a rugby game, they know what rugby looks like. They know they could be a famous rugby player if they want to. I think that's a really important thing to get people interested in handball, to get kids and young people interested in handball, is that they see the top level more. And that's why, for me, like, the very first easiest thing is, like, just for more people to see it on TV and on social media and stuff. And that's what motivates me in our media work, that we can really try to show people this game that they might not have heard of, and that it's much bigger than they thought. And hopefully that can inspire some young kids to want to play and build like that. That's my main thing.
Particularly now with Brisbane 2032 really coming up close, and Australia having another golden opportunity to push the sport, it's more important than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And they had a come and try day in Brisbane last year, and all the kids were saying handball was their favorite. I've never met anyone who tried handball and didn't say that they loved it. So it's really, I think, just an awareness that it exists is like the first thing in countries like, I think that there are a lot of places like Australia where it's just not that known, and that's a really important thing.
I have to say I totally agree with both of them. I could talk about this in 10 hours or something like that. It's very interesting, and it's very, very important for handball to expand. I think it's difficult. There's a lot of things who could be done. In the end, it's all about money, I think. But I would also like that more major championship would be played outside of Europe and outside of Scandinavia and everything like that. It's the same places we play year in, year out, and I don't think that's good. I really hope that it could develop handball in Africa when the World Championship we're going to be played in Egypt, and then Corona, of course, fucked everything up. That sucks. But I think that's in the future that will be very, very important that we get some of the World Championships to be played outside of Europe and also outside of Scandinavia. And it's pretty much the same countries where it's played. So I think that's important. Yeah, but there's a lot of things who could be done. I just hope, and I also think that we have a great opportunity with social media and everything like that to get awareness outside of Europe. We see some pretty interesting projects, in India, in the US, and of course in Africa, in North Africa, a lot of stuff happened. I would like to see maybe a better Super Globe tournament. I would like to see maybe some clubs from outside of Europe to be able to play in European competitions. It's possible when you play the European Championship with nations from outside of Europe, actually. So why not try to let two North African clubs, two Asian or something like that, two South American clubs participate in Europe, maybe in the future.
I have a question now for both Rasmus and Yagas, the in-house professional players. Like, when you talk about like social media spreading the brand of handball to maybe grow around the world, would you like to see it to go the way that basketball has went, where they've kind of almost created a caricature of every player, and then probably to the extreme where they're turned up on as like a fashion catwalk every time they turn up the games? I'm not sure it suits handball as much as basketball, but it's one direction you could go. Or is it more kind of along the lines of rugby, where it's more the collective of the team, and what you do with some star players? Because I think it's a big problem in handball that when you go to a game like today, what I was at, Bucharest versus Esberg, it's Nora Mork and Christina Niagu, and then it's everybody else. And it feels like the gap between those two and the popularity within one team is absolutely massive. Similar to what you would have with Nikola Karabatic on the men's side as well, with his popularity kind of, and Mikkel Hansen, golf and everybody else's. Should we try and bridge that gap a little bit more with some of the secondary players? Or which direction is it?
I think not. I think this is, in all the team sports, this is what makes people love it, You look at football, you're not gonna say, yeah, you're gonna say I love Barcelona, I love Real Madrid, but you're also gonna say I love Messi and Ronaldo. And people get attached to the idols, to these guys. They want to hear everything about them, not only football, not only the sport that they play. They want to know how they eat, how they do, funny stories about their lives. It's interesting to have idols and it's interesting to have stars. I think this is what made the like NBA and basketball so amazing, because they made it like a basketball culture. How they speak about each other. They speak about each other so high, like you feel that this guy is like doing something really amazing. But we don't speak about our players like this in handball. We don't have this culture. If you go on YouTube or Google, like one good old player, you're gonna find, I don't know, 5 videos for Kim Anderson on YouTube. It's just this stuff matters. And yeah, some players in handball who are playing now on good level, they don't even have accounts on social media. They don't care so much, and this has to be. I know that in some countries they push for it, and they are more aware now of social media, but this should be also in a lot of countries and in Champions League, because this branding is really important, that people follow you because these guys are like important in life, not only important in the 60 minutes that they will see maybe once a year or once every couple of months, that they become like an identity, that you're walking there. It makes you popular, famous. People get attracted to handball this way, and I think this is what we should push more to, not push against. That we should make our stars seem bigger, not like average. For the regular life, not for inside the sport. Everyone is a star. Okay, inside, if you talk to a young handball player, he's gonna speak about all the good handball players, amazing. But I mean that you would be walking randomly in a street somewhere, and they would see a handball player, and they would be, oh wow, this guy is a handball player, and they'd be like this.
I take Brazil I think Brazil example for the world in this chance. Brazil is a country that mostly is it's mobile data. They use phones for everything. Computer was not a thing massified, but phones was. So every time a player gets a new transfer, every time they go for the first division, or even, for example, a coach that comes from Europe doesn't have a social media account, they make the social media account immediately on all platforms. They hire a marketing company just to do that and to manage that. So imagine, like Yaya was saying, like imagine this to all the players playing in Brazil, the first division in football. They do this to every single one of them. And every time, for example, they got called to a national team, a new player is called to the national team, every time they put a video with the family, just celebrating and stuff. And this is like you were saying, Omar, this is the type of content that people love, that people connect to. They feel that, oh, he's a great player. He just called national team and he's celebrating with his entire family. Like it was the biggest thing ever that happened in his life, And I see the Brazil example for this, for all the social media and marketing. They are above us in almost everything. They take a lot of examples from the US in this entertainment and social media marketing.
A lot of it has to come from the players themselves, doesn't it? I mean, Mikkel Hansen, one of the best players of our generation, he does not like doing social media stuff. Like, he likes posting the odd random picture of him not smiling every now and again. Doesn't like doing interviews. Doesn't like talking to people. And he's one of the best players to ever do it. So, like, if he's not going to do it himself, you can't force him to do it, So it has to really, I think a lot of
you can't, for sure, you can't force them. Maybe I also don't care so much about posting about this and that, but you think all the football players do? They don't, but they get money for it. This is why they do it. If some company wants him to do some stuff for a lot of money, he's gonna do it. He's not gonna be posting every once in a while. And this is a true part about our job, You're gonna find some players posting a lot because they have sponsors, not because they love social media.
I think DKM doesn't love social media though. He's exception to the rule.
I think this is actually where was going to be my big point. You have to elevate the players, and we talked about Hansen and Karabatic, but we know them. Everyone knows them as stars. But can anyone remember like an iconic quote, an iconic kind of action from them, except for a bit of match fixing? Something where they've gone in and proved a statement, and it became an iconic movement. And I don't know, it's obviously difficult with the different languages, and that kind of it doesn't translate as well. But if you can elevate players and put them in positions where they are forced to make statements, commitments, amazing, and they back it up with their play, because they always back it up with their play. So, and everyone follows them because of their play. So you kind of you build an aura around them, and that brings the sport up. You have people who might just know this one player, but they might tune in to watch him in the World Championship once, in the Olympics the second time, and then in the Champions League final the third time, and it builds.
I've actually maybe one last question. I don't know how much longer we're going to go for, but maybe this could be one of the last ones anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of in terms of marketing the sport as the thing, it's always a big topic when you work for various federations about showing the roughness of handball versus it being a beautiful thing. And what do you think as handball players? Do you want to market it as handball is a really tough sport? You get injured, you're going to pop your finger, you're wearing tape, you have a knee support on, or do you try to avoid that? Because a lot of people would argue then that that's how you get kids to play handball in the first place, because it looks like this beautiful thing, and parents are going to be less judgeful of it. Or which direction do you go? Do you lean into the rough side of handball, or do you try to stay away from it? Because I personally think leaning into it would be a better thing.
I'm with you, Brian. I think I don't really agree with trying to conceal or not show the sport fully. That's part of it. And how many sports are there that also have some physical contact that everyone's very aware of it, and it doesn't stop people playing? I think it's part of the game, and I think it should be shown.
There's a lot of talk about arguably the two heaviest hitting sports in terms of contact, American football and rugby, and parents being against it, in the future not allowing their children to play, people kind of leaning against it because of its, let's say, over physicality. In handball, it's not to that extent. I think there's a nice balance in the sport between it being this kind of controlled aggression sport where there are injuries, of course, like in every sport, but it's not like you're smacking your head against the opposition over and over again, only if you're a goalkeeper and you get the ball to your head. But I mean, that's an active thing that is being worked against in the rules as well. So yeah, I like promoting the physicality and the rough and ready side of it. What about you, Rasmus?
Yeah, I also love it. Of course. Yeah, it's difficult. I think if the content is good enough, for me, it doesn't matter if it's the stars or everything like that. But I think that every handball player, every star player, every professional player, they need to help develop handball. And I don't think that all the players around the handball world, the top players, they are not that good. They like to see basketball, and that's also, of course, okay. And they like to talk about football, but they also need to talk about handball. They also need to talk about the legends in handball if we want handball to become bigger, I think. So I think that we can learn a lot from basketball, from football, to try to focus on our own sport and try to develop it and make it even bigger.
And then Yahya, on the physicality side, how do you feel about it?
I think it makes handball special. It makes it a bit unique from basketball and volleyball. People like to see it. People like to see how intense we are and how you can be physically like a little bit active, but also not dangerous. So I think, yeah, if we set the rules that no stupid thing, no pushing in the air, no kicking, no stuff like this, then it's perfect. And I think it makes handball unique than other sports. We're hitting each other, but we're not also injuring anyone. And you can, and in this stuff, physical stuff, you can see how people get flair, and have some skills that they can show against the strong guys who are hitting. It makes handball look nice to watch.
Good stuff. So Patrick has thrown in a question here, which we will ask before we let you all go. Handball has a foothold in North Africa and the Middle East. Which region is the next most important for the future of the sport? The Americas or Asia? Answers and a short sentence on why.
I mean, look, I don't want to pick just one. But if I was going to say which one should we tackle first, maybe I would go Americas. Partly because already in South America, handball has a very good position, actually, in some countries in terms of participation and some decent leagues. Argentina, Brazil, and as there's a conversation about handball on TV in the US. That's also one of the things I see as extremely important. Unfortunately, I mean, I wish it wasn't like that, but I'm sure that if the US developed in handball, there are other countries that would see it and be more interested. So I do think that, the Americas is probably our most important target.
Anyone feeling Asia? Or Yahya, go ahead.
No, I agree with exactly what you said. It's a bigger opportunity, and also already it's based there with South America and this, so I think it's better to have it there.
Alex, you're looking forward to the Indian Premier Handball League.
It's the next generation Indian Premier Handball League. It's coming in June. That's going to be next level. But yeah, now being based in the US, it is still, we talk about kind of breaking it as a sport, but it's just such a minor sport here. The official nationals are actually going on this weekend. There's about 25 teams at it, mostly expats. And it's just a big slog of how you actually break it. There's no real support from kind of the grassroots level. There's no grassroots strategy in the same way that like the UK approached it. They approached it really well from a grassroots sense. There's no kind of cohesive strategy on that. It's all about kind of the top level. And, the only thing that you can do, I think, is if someone puts in money, starts a league in the US, and all the best European players go over here, that might cause some waves, but how does that actually fit into the growth of the sport as a whole? I'm not really sure. So it would be amazing to break the Americas, but I just don't quite see a route for it right now. While I think Asia actually does have a more core presence that can be grown and marketed in the right way to really expand quite rapidly. So yeah, Americas would be the ideal, but the better route could be Asia.
I guess I would just say that, like with football, they did quite a good job of that in the US, right, with their football league. So there's kind of already a model there that could be followed if there was money for it. Also, something I think that's interesting about finding a way to develop handball in the US. Well, first of all, I'm sure if it became big enough, there would be money to develop, like to really help it take off. But also, that would be a really interesting example then for countries that have the same geographical challenges. Like the US is so different from the UK with the many states and all this sort of stuff. And there are a few countries that have those same geographical barriers. And maybe if we could get it right in one country, it would be really helpful to countries like Australia and Canada. Also.
Yeah. And Dominic saying there, played in New York City for many years. The team there organized an annual event with European top stars. Yeah, I believe that's coming back as well, maybe next year. I was speaking to the organizer of that, Beanie Mustafa, at the World Championship. But hey, it's been 2 hours and 15 minutes, folks. I think it's time to say goodbye. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this celebration of our 200th episode. Special thanks to Yaya Omar, Rasmus Boyson, Courtney Gahan, and even Eduarda Amorim, who couldn't be here for this, but will make it up to us with a special guest of her own, hopefully, at some point in the future. And thank you to everyone who joined for this live recording on the Sunday evening. We really appreciate your contributions and just being here to celebrate with us. And everyone who's listening as well on the recorded version of the podcast as well. Thank you all for your support over the last 200 episodes. Let's look forward to the next 200, huh? Let's see how long that takes.
I have one question. Hey, Gun Hills, are you Ellie Rice? That's a relation to Ellie Rice. That
yes, I'm the aunt.
Oh my God, Gun Hills! It's fantastic. Thank you for joining us, and well, congratulate Henny for us.
Thank you. I will.
And we will maybe for the next big celebration, we'll have Henny on as well. She's a lovely person to talk to. But yeah, thank you so much to Gunnels and to everyone who watched live with us. And yeah, we'll call it a night. We'll talk to you all next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so there you have it. That was a snippet from our live show that we had a few weeks back. Thanks to all the guests once again. Chris, we forgot to mention that you did run into a very lovely Patreon subscriber at the Magdeburg game who brought up a very interesting story that I had way back when I visited Magdeburg the first time with my lovely taxi driver, Uli. It was not my story to tell, actually. You met him.
You just told the whole story, Brian. That's fine.
I had it in my head that his name is Ollie Mitten, but that's the Faroese player I'm thinking
Ollie
of.
Mitten, yeah. That'd be like you saying, coming up to somebody and said, guess what? Alex has great news to tell. Can you see the engagement ring in his finger? Go on, Alex, you tell him.
or that time at the Final Four, I was like, Alex's big news, he's moving to the US. Alex, tell him the big news. That actually did happen.
It's actually how my dad asks questions. My dad will have Skype calls or like calls, and he'll be like, so how's work going? It must be pretty busy right now. You're probably doing loads of projects, and then you probably have a bit of time in the evenings. You're playing handball, right? You're training every couple of days, and are you going to have a match? Yeah, that match probably going to go well.
Yeah, actually, an incredibly special Patreon. The first person to sign up and pay on Patreon, Ola Bola from Germany, lives just outside of Magdeburg, came up to me at halftime in the game, and he said, Have you guys met Yannick Green's neighbour this time in the taxi? What a great callback to Brian's story about the taxi driver. Right there and then I knew, he's a good fan of the podcast. And yeah, we had a nice chat, Ola and I. Big Magdeburg fan. And now he's got a big decision to make, because I asked, like, what if you make it to the Final Four, are you going? And he's like, I really want to, but my mother's birthday is on the Saturday. So, yeah. I would say, Ola,
she's going to be disappointed.
If you ask us, go, your mother's birthday happens once a year. Exactly. And Magdeburg are into the Final Four for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So, easy decision to make, I would say. Thank you so much, Ola, for your support and for coming up to say hello. Always nice to meet people who listen to the podcast and are fans. So if you ever run into any of us, do feel free to come over. We're not scary. There was the person on the bus a while ago who didn't say hello to me, but then sent me a message on Instagram. Christian Freinander, who had the crying child on the bus with his partner, and he said he didn't have the guts to approach me in real life to thank us for the great work in the podcast. We're not that scary. We're almost as friendly in real life as we are in the podcast. But yes, thank you to everyone for the support, and we'll be back next week with another show and another Morning Club episode. Until then, take care. Goodbye.